Another short talk about the invisible world. This is recorded part 2. In the first recorded talk, I spoke to you about motivation, why I would be interested in the invisible world. And to summarize that, I simply said that the gods need our help. So my interest in understanding and being a part of the invisible world is to be helpful, is to be useful, is to offer service. Well, the question arises, how do I navigate the invisible world? How do I connect to it? The invisible world is available to you by allowing yourself to enter into the extraordinariness of nature. Probably the simplest thing is to sit somewhere and allow yourself to enter into a meditative space, someplace in the natural world where you won't be disturbed and where you feel safe. For me, that was sitting at a creek at a remote spot in a national park. And I would sit on a particular rock that seemed welcoming and friendly and just sit there. And listen to the creek. And it became my practice to do that once a week, no matter what the weather, for as long as I could tolerate it. After a while, I would get cramps in my lower body sitting on a rock, or I would get cold or wet or bitten by bugs, whatever. But I did it every week, and over many months, what happened was that I would sit down and I would lose track of time and space and myself, and I would enter into a quietness, an emptiness. And at those moments, I was entering the invisible world. Now, many years later, I don't need to find a stream or a creek or a rock. I can enter the invisible world rather quickly. Anytime I feel safe enough to open myself in this way. At some point in my early 50s, I wanted to learn how to navigate in the invisible world. I wanted to find my way around. I had no idea how to do that. I didn't know anyone who knew how to do that, and I couldn't find any books about this. But I was convinced that if I could find my way around, I could be more useful. I could find what I was looking for. So I went looking for someone who could help me navigate. Uh, I've written about this in my second book, What Wants to Be Known. There's some pages about my time with my teacher in my early 50s, Don Manuel Quispe. At night, sitting with Don Manuel, as the evening went on, at some point, he would get up, I would get up and follow him, and we went for a walk. The walk was always in complete silence. Don Manuel lived at 15,000 feet in a little village called Chua Chua in the southern Peruvian Andes. It was a place that was off the maps in the days before GPS. And at night, when I followed Don Manuel, it was in complete darkness. And he would wait until fog had covered over the sky. So we were truly in the darkness. There were no flashlights. There was no electricity in that region, and there were no roads. And as I followed Manuel, I was trying not to step in the llama dung until we got outside the village. And once we were past the village and away from the pastures, I could sense that we were walking on a trail. And as always, the trail seemed to lead to another trail. And we were on the side of a cliff, walking on a narrow trail that was wet from fog. And I could hear the wind, and I realized that one side of the trail was the side of a cliff, the other side was empty, open, and bottomless. and the trail was narrow, and Don Manuel kept up a ferocious pace. I tried to follow so I wouldn't get lost. And I would rapidly become terrorized because I knew that if I lost my footing, that was the end. And we walked for, I have no idea how long. And then we would somehow end up back at the door to Don Manuel's home. And go back inside and sit back down. And I was covered in sweat. Sometimes I had wet myself. I was just terrorized. And then the next night, we repeated this. And the next night, and the next night. And whenever I was with Don Manuel, this was part of our evening. And I don't know how many times we did that. 20, 30, 50, I don't know. There were no clocks, there were no calendars. I lost track of the days. And then one night I realized that I was following behind Don Manuel, and I wasn't terrorized. I wasn't frightened. I wasn't anxious. I wasn't nervous. I was simply following his lead. I was comfortable. And just cold in the wind and fog and the altitude. But I was no more than cold. I was just cold. I was otherwise relaxed and comfortable. And that was the end of this. We never did another walk like that. There was no point. I was able to walk into the unknown without fear. And as you probably gathered, that's the way I learned to navigate the invisible world. The invisible world, if you're not comfortable, can be frightening. Anything could happen. You could get lost. In fact, in my early 30s, I did get lost when I tried to navigate the invisible world. One afternoon, I got extraordinarily lost. And I remember I actually fainted. I was so frightened and terrorized that I fainted. I passed out. And I woke up sometime later on my kitchen floor. And I didn't attempt to navigate the invisible world until 20 years later. thanks to Don Manuel. I'm not suggesting that you would want to navigate the invisible world. This is how I learned. And if you want to learn it, I suggest you do something of the sort. Go for a walk at night when it's really dark and there's no moon and no flashlight. Have someone with you so if you fall, you're not alone. And let yourself get frightened. And do it every night until you're no longer frightened, until you actually start to find your way. Because you'll discover it's possible to walk in the complete absence of light at night in the natural world. And that's how you learn to navigate in the invisible world. It isn't possible to do this unless you're really inside your body, because it's your body, it's you as a body, which is doing this. You as a thought, as a feeling, as an emotion can't do this. It's you as a member of our species, which has the wiring to be able to do this. We know how to do this. We just have to remember. So I'm talking about remembering. You really do have to get embodied. You have to be able to be who you are without your thoughts and feelings and emotions. Because the invisible world is hidden to you if you're in your thoughts, feelings, and emotions. It's a wordless expanse. It's quiet. Obviously, it's mysterious to your mind. It's not mysterious to you if you're not in your mind. Being embodied is not about being mindful. Mindfulness, as I hope you know, is a psychological process. You have to get out of your psychology. You have to get out of yourself as a personality. You do have a life outside of your personality. Being embodied frees yourself from yourself. And one more thing, navigating the invisible world is only possible if you're actually located in your body on the planet. You have to remain connected to the earth. So when you sit down on a rock and listen to a creek, you have to actually sit on the rock and let yourself sink into it. It's become increasingly difficult because we have a busy buzzing that goes on with all that we think and feel and do. It's hard to find places that are just quiet. The rock and the creek, which were my venue, I admit that I drove 2 hours to get to the parking and then another 20 minutes on the dirt road in the national park until I could finally sit down and feel safe in the quiet. These places are not that easy to find. And then at the end, you have to get back to wherever your starting point was. I still do this. Every Wednesday, I get in my car and I drive to my spot. Now it's only an hour, that whole process of getting there and sitting down. And then, of course, it's an hour back. But I'm not in any hurry. Oh, and I bring a chair with me now. Because I'm really an old guy and I don't like sitting on the ground in the bricks anymore. I need the comfort of a chair. I bring a portable camp chair. I take people with me sometimes. Some of you listening on the Zoom talk have gone with me. It's as simple as I'm describing. In my next talk, I'll talk about what happens when I navigate the invisible world, what I do, where I go. Thank you for listening. Goodbye.